Hi and welcome. Following my recent video about playing the F-14 campaign without a pilot, I wondered if there is a way to make the AI Wingman less useless. In DCS, in fact, the AI tends to usually immolate itself by banzaiing against a guerrilla group or just casually strolling over enemy defenses. So, in an effort to make it actually useful, I played with different commands, trying to create something akin a timeline. I tried different combinations of formations and maneuvers, but none ultimately provided a tangible effect until I identified the problem. Since there's no proper timeline support, which should not be too complex to implement at basic level, certain engagement range will work, the engagement range do not match. Often the AI employs against targets that are about or are defending. The cause is often that the human would almost always launch the first missile to a range large enough to support launch and leave tactics, and enough room for a second shot, perhaps concluded by a short skate or banzai. The AI by default does not do any of these, and it employs a quite short range. As we said, we cannot control the employment range of the AI, but what if we can stagger the missile launches, de facto decoupling the human from the AI? As many have probably realized already, a grinder does something quite similar in a sense. Since understanding the problem is half of the solution, I then tested with multiple commands and eventually settled on using the anchor. With this command, the AI orbits around the current position, and when needed, the human Rio can command the AI to engage, perhaps post out in a launch and leave scenario. As a side note, multiple commands stack. For example, you can command the trailing pincer I followed by the anchor, and the AI will loiter from that status, thus maintaining the altitude delta. However, for simplicity's sake, I did not use any of these, and every shown engagement started from the default formation. Before jumping into the practical example, let's recap the situation. The desired effect is the employment of the M54 Phoenix in multiple instances. This avoids a series of issues. Launching multiple missiles at the same time, in fact, is often overkill or waste, especially in scenarios where we are able to maintain separation, or the target defense by turning cold. There are also additional issues related to how Aqua Scan works, the susceptibility of the INS to cranking, and other potential problems involving the geometry. Only the first two examples are shown from my perspective, and the others features only the TAC view tracks. The first example is a 2v2 against Sukhoi 27, armed with R-27ER and ET, jamming pods and R-73. Despite the setting being close to the end of the Cold War, I used M54A rather than M54C. The second test is asymmetrical and shows a 2v4 against 4 MiG-31s, each armed with 4 R-33s. This is the type of situation where the poor man's grinder works best. For the sake of keeping the video short, I skipped the cockpit setup, the preparations, and pretending to be committed already. We know the threats in the area to keep an eye on. Example 1 shows a simple setup 2v2 against a pair of flankers. I anchored the AI Wingman at 70 nautical miles, my timeline sees an employment at about 55 nautical miles, launch and leave out south. I took it easy with the crank. I'm using the 54A, and I'm more interested in maintaining guidance rather than optimizing the separation.
You got it.
At April, realistically, I went out south and committed the AI Wingman.
Fight. Engage bandits. On it.
The AI is smart enough to avoid shooting cold targets, so what it does is merely run in and shooting whatever turns out again. This is a problem usually, but thanks to our poor man's grinder, it becomes an advantage. Since one contact faded, conscious that the AWACS is quite far and the terrain offers masking, I decided to turn in again, this time with the intent of banzai. The idea is offering some cover to the wingman. It is engaging, but if it misses, then I'm ready for a follow-up shot. The problem here is that there is no simple and immediate way to send the wingman to the previous anchor position.
I'm on it.
Missile incoming, surely a Fox 1. But I'm confident that the lock will drop soon, as the Wingman has called Fox 3 earlier, and the range is still about 30 nautical miles. Since we have superiority, I opted for a TrackWise scan launch at 30 nautical miles to maintain pressure, setting the size to large in order to anticipate the A-pole. This is not realistic, of course. This situation highlights well why playing with the AI is so tedious. There is zero coordination. If the Wingman were human, I would have told him to hook in order to increase separation, whilst the missile chased its target.
You got it.
With the AI instead, all I can do is trying to keep the friendly out of my radar. Moreover, you can't even tell it to RTB or rejoin, as you can't predict where it will fly.
Copy.
So far, I haven't killed any friendly AI, but the AI killed me with a sparrow. Yeah, I know, I'm confused too. Anyway, now I'm in a support position. I switch to PDSTT, which is a very solid lock. The AI Wingman appeared to be blowing through, so I took a shot. Interestingly, the TAD displayed an extrapolated track with jamming strobe that did not make much sense to me, but as usual, I relied on the DDD to monitor the situation. During the last part of the action, I had the MLC off. I needed it earlier to save the trackwise scan shot, but not when I switched to PDSTT, as the flanker was visibly jamming, making itself bright and shine into the WCS and the A54. Moving to TAC view, the first part of the engagement went as planned, with one Su-27 splashed and the second turning cold. Then the AI Wingman entered the fray, launching a Phoenix, followed by my second TAC scan launch, which was trashed almost immediately. Eventually, with my AI Wingman blowing through, I felt confident on launching a lethal PDSTT guided M54A at very close range. I had a good laugh looking at the R27ET behaving as an AIM-9X and splashing my Wingman in a quite spectacular way. I thoroughly enjoyed the second example, two F-14Bs fighting four MiG-31s. The setup is wider, with the aircraft starting over 100 miles away. Due to the disparity of numbers and the fairly long range of the AA-9 Amos, I opted for an employment range of 75 nautical miles. The long employment range is enabled by these several factors, in premise the very high VC and the odd geometry. I therefore targeted what appeared to be the lead group, eventually splashing one, and again target size is unrealistically set to large to go out earlier, and again I was very easy on the crank as I needed the INS to behave and let me land at least one missile. A-pole out, AI Wingman enabled, one contact faded and is 2v3 now.
You got it.
As the AI launched, I turned again in a supporting position, ready to follow up on any threat. A moment of uncertainty when both targets disappeared from the Link 4. This happened due to the terrain and the position of the AWACS, which was quite far from the area. I did it deliberately to make my life harder. Remember, train in harder scenarios, so when this stuff happens in your mission, you know how to handle it. In this case, I knew the previous spatial position of the MiGs, but I couldn't find the second one on my radar, so I decided to dive as it appeared briefly on the TID, switch to Sparrow, lock in BSL, and splash it with my AIM-7. This is the type of scenario where I really feel the need for a human pilot in the front seat. And good crew coordination makes the difference. In the meantime, with my wingman heading in the direction of the threat of my RWR, I extended north to gain separation before turning in again. However, the AI did its job and moved on the day. Track view shows how the MiGs interestingly opened up, de facto splitting into 3 groups. Now look at the AI blasting through and tossing 54s around. This forced the MiGs to defend again, and with them turning cold, we were safe to push the advantage. I'm not certain why none of the MiGs shoot any R33 or R40, and yes, they had them, I double checked. Anyway, the goal here is to show how the simple tricks have to turn the AI wingman from a poor device to a resource. Example 3 is similar to the first, when we faced 2 Sukhoi 27s. This time I extended more to the east after the first launch, which killed one of the flankers. The AI did not do much, hitting an ET quite early. Eventually I followed up with the usual PT STT shot, finishing the remaining fighter. Example 4 shows a 2v4 against MiG-25s. I opened as usual, turned cold, and well, the AI did everything itself. Well done. Last example, against two MiG-29s. I splashed the first one with the first salvo, then tried to press the advantage on my own by low sensor awareness. I then turned cold and summoned the AI to follow up as I unloaded and bugged out, as I assume a MARO of about 7 nautical miles. As we've seen before, the AI does not shy from taking dangerous shots, but eventually we got the job done. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you have found it useful. See you in 2023.